All right, saints, now after that wonderful revelation of the work of those two witnesses, where we saw that they bring the cross to Israel, they bring that life, that resurrection life to Israel, and Israel will have her eyes opened, and that resurrection life will come to her, and she will receive the true and the living Messiah. And now we go on to Revelation chapter 12. And now we're up to chapter 12. And those on the broad road to destruction would have buried you into destruction. But we've seen one thing happen. A moderate-sized asteroid hit and caused the downfall of Babylon. And now we've got these two signs. In these two signs we're about to read about, in these two signs you see how things will play out for the saints just prior to the tribulation, prior to the pre-tribulation rapture, and work its way through to the end of the tribulation. You will see that in these two signs. These are two signs. They're a clear picture of how things are going to play out for the church in these end times, in these end last days. These two signs will show you how it will play out. You will see it all in these two signs. And we will see this woman again before we're done with this book. In Revelation 12:1, and a great sign appeared in heaven. John sees in heaven a sign, a clear picture of something. A woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. This is clearly the church, saints. Lots of people want to tell you this is Israel. This is not Israel. It's Israel that are born again. It's Israel that are walking with God. It's Israel in the sons of God in Israel. But this is the church because it's a woman. And this is building up. We're coming to the time of the bride of Christ and to his wife, as we will see in future chapters. So this is that woman, the church, clothed with the sun. She has the glory, the light of God, as we've seen in so many visions of the throne and of the Father and of the Son. There's this glory of the Son. She's clothed with it. She's clothed with the finished work, the glory of God, the righteousness of God. And the moon under her feet. What's the moon? The moon is that rock. And the moon under her feet. She's standing on that rock that shines the light of God into the darkness of this world, which is Christ himself. She's standing on that rock. And that light from that rock shines into the darkness of this world. And on her head a crown of 12 stars. 12 has to do with, it's the number for eternal government. Those that will rule and reign with God. So she has these 12 stars. And listen here, saints, verse 2. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. So you see in this sign of this woman is about, the church is about to give birth to something, give birth to life. So she is crying out. She's in labor. She's in pain. And she's getting ready to give birth. And now verse 3. And another sign appeared in heaven. And as we go on with this, saints, we're in this higher place. We've entered this book through the small gate, staying on the narrow way, which is Christ himself. And we've said we're looking at this from a higher place. We're mainly going to follow this woman. But you're going to see in following this woman that Satan follows along. So we have another sign here. And another sign appeared in heaven. And behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head were 7 crowns. So we have this dragon, we have Satan here. So we have these 2 signs. One is the woman, the church, who's about to give birth to something. The other is Satan. And his tail swept away 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon, saints, look at here, and the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth. So before this woman is going to give birth, and we're going to see what that is in a second, saints, before she gives birth, he's already standing there. He's standing there as she's about to give birth. So that when, not that happens immediately, so he's there when she's about to, so that when she does give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour this child. And that devour means like to eat down, like an animal eating something on the ground and just eating it down, like vultures eating down a carcass. He wants to consume this thing. He wants to destroy this thing. He wants to bring death to this thing, this life, this child, this woman's about to give birth to. And in verse 5, and she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations. So what is she giving birth to? Here, this is the church. And she's about to give birth. And you're going to see in a minute when she gives birth. She's about to give birth to this male child who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. Where do we see that, saints? The book of Revelation just keeps you updated all the time. It's all here. Revelation 2:25-27. Nevertheless, what you have hold fast until I come. This is a message to the church of Thyatira from this angel, this messenger of God. Nevertheless, what you have, hold fast until I come. And he who overcomes and keeps my deeds until the end, to him, remember this is a male child, to him I will give authority over the nations, and he, male child, he shall rule over them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter are broken to pieces. So you see, for those who overcome, for those who hold fast, the Lord says that to him, I will grant authority over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And she, coming back to chapter 12, and she, the church, gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. You see it here, saints. This is the church. This is the pre-tribulation rapture. This is those that are waiting, watching, ready. And you're going to see this play out for the church to the end of the tribulation. This is just prior to the tribulation. She's in labor. She's in pain. This is ready to burst forth, this pre-tribulation rapture. And Satan comes waiting for her to give birth that he might devour the child. But she gives birth. This is the pre-tribulation rapture, to a male child. And he shall, what does it say? Rule. Who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. And listen, saints, and her child, this child coming out of the church, was caught up to God and to his throne. Like you read to John, where John was in Revelation chapter 4. Verse 2, immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was standing in heaven, and one sitting on the throne. Because John had heard, come up here, and I will show you what must take place. So now you have the church. You have this church with this about to give birth to something. She's ready to give birth to the pre-tribulation rapture, or those waiting, watching, ready. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. What you saw in Revelation 2:25-27. And that child is caught up into heaven, raptured, and taken to the throne of God. And in verse 6, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God. What is this wilderness? Here this woman is born again. A lot of these on the broad road to destruction, they want to tell you, oh, the Christians are going to go out and hide, or this is Jews and they're going to go out and hide in the wilderness when the Antichrist comes. No, this is we're going to see even clearer. This is the pre-tribulation rapture. And this woman, the church, once giving birth, once the pre-tribulation rapture happens of those ready, watching, waiting, and the woman fled into the wilderness. And we're going to see more about this. But what is this? Exodus chapter 13, verses 17 and 18. Now Israel has come out of Egypt, but she hasn't entered the promised land. She's in the wilderness where they were for 40 years. And look what it says here. Now it came about when Pharaoh had let the people go that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines. God did not immediately lead them to the promised land. Why? Even though it was near, they could have gotten there quickly, but they stayed out in the wilderness for 40 years until most of those had died. They had to have that resurrection life to enter into the promised land. So they're out there for 40 years. Even though it was near, for God said, lest the people change their mind when they see war and they return to Egypt. The people weren't ready for war. They couldn't go straight into the promised land because they weren't ready for war. And this woman isn't ready. Obviously, she wasn't ready, watching, waiting, because she wasn't taken. But those that were ready, watching, waiting, were taken, and they're to rule with a rod of iron. And in verse 18, hence God led the people around by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea. And the sons of Israel went up in marital array from the land of Egypt. So we have throughout the Bible too this theme of the wilderness. John the Baptist wasn't in Jerusalem, he was in the wilderness, the same wilderness. So this woman, this church, gives birth to this son in this pre-tribulation rapture of those that are waiting, watching, ready, and there to rule with a rod of iron. And then the woman, the church, as the tribulation is coming, and the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by God. This woman is going to be protected. The death, the beheading, the destruction you see on the saints mainly comes to the Jews in the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. So the woman, the church that's left that wasn't ready, watching and waiting, they're not ready for war. The woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by God so that she might be nourished for, it amounts to 3.5 years. So after the pre-tribulation rapture, for the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, the Gentile church will go to a place where God has for her because she's not ready for war, where she'll be prepared. And it says that she might be nourished because that latter-day rain will fall upon her. And she'll have that living water. She'll have that blood of Christ to drink. She'll have his flesh to eat. And she will be nourished. Verse 7, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels waging war against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels waged war. And they were not strong enough, and there was no longer a place found for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil and Satan, who delivered the whole world, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. So at this point, Satan is permanently cast down to earth. And he has come to deceive the whole world. And in verse 10, and I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of the brethren, he's accusing us day and night, for the accuser of the brethren has been thrown down, who accuses them, us, the saints, before God day and night. That's what he does, saints. Always trying to find your mistakes. Always trying to find your weaknesses. Always trying to stop you from growing and going on and serving God by bringing up how weak you are, the mistakes you've made. Don't let him do that to you, saints. You've overcome through the blood of the Lamb. And verse 11, and they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony. So now as Satan has fallen to earth and the church that's left goes into the wilderness and is nourished by God for 3.5 years, and they overcame him. They will overcome Satan because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony. They will be testifying, preaching the gospel for the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. The Gentile church will be doing that. And listen, and they did not love their life even to death. So now they are laying down their life. They're coming to the cross. They're getting ready. For this reason, rejoice, heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he only has a short time. So now the devil knows he only has 7 years. The pre-tribulation rapture has happened. The tribulation is starting. The devil has fallen to earth, and he has great wrath against the saints because he doesn't want them to succeed, to rise up to heaven. But the Gentile church is being protected. You already saw that. She has a place prepared for her in the wilderness. She goes out there to be nourished. Realize this about the Gentile church. The hell on earth that the Antichrist will bring against the saints is going to be the last 3.5 years of the tribulation against the Jews that turn to Christ. Verse 13, and when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted. Listen here, saints. People overdo this. There's something to be seen here. And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the child. So you've had the pre-tribulation rapture of those that are going to rule, reign with Christ. They're caught up into heaven. The church that's left that wasn't ready, that goes into the tribulation. We saw in chapter 7, hundreds of millions of Christians are in the tribulation. Those saints that go in there will preach the gospel, and endless people will be saved. And when devil saw that he was thrown down to earth, he will persecute her. But listen, you're going to see something here. To an extent, and we'll see it in a minute. And the 2 wings of the great eagle were given to the woman, in order that she may fly into the wilderness. We're seeing pictures and types, just like the first 4 trumpets. We're all pictures, types, views, descriptions of that one asteroid. We're seeing through this message of these 2 signs. This comes out over and over and over, showing you this again and again to make it clear. The dragon has been cast down. He's going to persecute the woman. And 2 wings of the great eagle were given to the woman in order that she may fly into the wilderness. Speaking of the same thing we just read, it's just another description of it. She is going to fly. She's going to have these wings like an eagle. Remember, this is a sign. She's going to soar above what Satan is doing as he persecutes her. And we're going to see in a second to what extent that in order that she may fly, soar into the wilderness to her place where she was nourished. See, this is just re-describing another vision, another look, another insight into what you just saw. The woman flying into the wilderness, where she was nourished for 3.5 years from the presence of the serpent. She will be protected by God. All these Christians are so worried. Oh, no, God wouldn't let us go into the tribulation. Oh, I don't want to lay my life. They'll lay their life down for a country in a minute. But you tell them Christians may go into the tribulation and have to lay their life down, which Christians have throughout the entire time of the church age, especially Christians in America. Oh, no, I'll lay myself down for America. But God would never have me do that for the church, for him. But For the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, the time of the Gentiles, they're going to be protected from the presence of the serpent. We're going to see what he can and what he does do. That's a different picture for Israel. He will persecute her. He will come against the Jews when they turn to Christ. In verse 15, and the serpent poured water. Remember, water's the word of God, the word of life. It quenches your thirst. It feeds you. The serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth. This is a different water. And the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman. So now Satan is pouring these words out. Him, his people, his kingdom, and the kingdom of the beast that's rising up. He's pouring out this water, these words against the woman. The river of the mouth after the woman, so that he might, it doesn't say he did, it says so he might cause her to be swept away with a flood. There's going to be a verbal persecution against the church that's in the tribulation. They're going to be preaching the gospel. They're going to be warning about the kingdom of the beast and the Antichrist. They're going to be describing what happened with the asteroid. They're going to be describing how and why Babylon fell. And the kingdom of the beast, the Antichrist, those that are being used by him are going to pour out words like a river, like water, and they want to cause her to be swept away with a flood of this verbal persecution. But look what happens in verse 16. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river, which the dragon poured out of his mouth. So is Satan and his people and his kingdom, which is rising up, are persecuting the church, speaking evil of the church, because the church is warning and speaking evil of them. They're pouring that flood out. But the earth, what's that represent? The people, the sensible people of the earth, and the other Christians help the woman. As you know, it would help happen around the world as the saints are being verbally persecuted. Other people are going to open up and help the church. Not those being used by Satan, not those that are going to go to hell with him, but the sensible people and the born-again Christians. And the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon poured out of his mouth. And in verse 17, and the dragon was enraged with the woman. Now he becomes very mad. Now he's raging with her. But he has only been verbally, as we could see here, coming against her. And the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her offspring. Who's that? That's coming down to the end of the tribulation. This is the saints. We saw before in the trees that those demons, those spirits of darkness from the fifth trumpet weren't allowed to harm the green things or the trees or the green grass. That's the church. And for the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, the Gentile church will only verbally be abused. Once they're taken up, this right here now, saints, goes to the end of the tribulation. And the Israeli people, as they receive Christ, and the dragon was enraged with the woman, the church. And as Israel turns to the Messiah, turns to Christ, they will be the church, the saints, the congregation in Israel. And he went off to make war with the rest of her offspring, Israel, as they turn to him, who keep the commandments of God. And you know how the Jewish people that serve God always want to obey his commandments. The Gentiles think, the 10 commandments and the commandments of God, they're not for us. We don't care. But the Jewish people always have, who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Yeshua. So in these two witnesses, just like the four trumpets, you've got several pictures, images, descriptions of this one thing that's happening. These two signs, the church and Satan. The church will give birth in the pre-tribulation rapture to those that are ruling or going to rule and reign with Christ. The rest of the church that's left that wasn't ready will go into the wilderness, to a place prepared by God, not hiding in the trees. No, they'll go into that place where they're not in Egypt, but they're not in the promised land yet. They're in the middle, but they're being nourished. They're growing. They're developing. Satan will come out verbally hating them, abusing them, speaking evil of them, but they will soar above this. And he will pour out water like a river. And that he might, not that he will, might cause her to be swept away. But the earth, the peoples of the earth, for the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, will help the church, will work with the church. People will be getting saved. That's the ones. They'll be coming. They'll be opening up. They'll be helping those. And they will be born again. But then Satan will be enraged with the woman, the church in Israel, and he'll go off to make war. Now he'll go off to make war with Israel, and he will be beheading them by the hundreds of thousands until the coming of Christ. But those that have been slain will be the top, the glory, the crowning glory of this temple of the living God, not made of hands, not made of stone. That's what God's looking for. This body of Christ, this temple of the living God.